All right, so yes, here we go. Todd Howard and Bethesda just did something incredible, and this bodes well for the future of Elder Scrolls entirely. And we're going to talk about one of the biggest problems with Oblivion Remastered currently that is really holding it back right now. We have a modder that dives deep into this problem and gives us exactly what is going on and how it can potentially be fixed. And we also got to talk about how one of the biggest, most prevalent features in the game is actually being called out and is being titled as one of the worst parts of the game. We'll dive into this one as well. And we got to talk about cut content because there's one faction or guild that was completely cut from the game, and it would be absolutely amazing to see this return in a very big way, perhaps even in Elder Scrolls 6. And yes, I'm going over your top comments, so as always, leave a comment down below. It could end up right here in a future video. But yeah, today we have absolutely fantastic news, and I think this sort of thing bodes very well for the future of Bethesda and Elder Scrolls. Check it out right here. It says this: Bethesda invited the Skyblivion team for a tour of Maryland studios. They even got to sit down with some of the devs and meet the Todd himself. And we can zoom in here because we got the post straight from the guys from Skyblivion. It says this: massive thanks to Bethesda for inviting us to the office and showing us around. Seeing the excitement from the Bethesda team for Skyblivion is absolutely unreal. Thank you. You can see all the photos here. Skyblivion team with Bethesda. I love to see this sort of thing for the modding community. The big modders get together with the developers, and I'm kind of curious to see what was said behind closed doors. I would love to be a fly on that wall. You know, I want to see more of this sort of thing. We've seen CD Projekt Red really embrace modders. They've even gone out and hired modders as well, and that's the sort of thing that I would love to see. And it would be really cool, I gotta say, if these guys actually ended up on like the credits eventually of like something like Elder Scrolls 6. That sort of fan service would be absolutely amazing. But it goes to show that Bethesda is really supportive of their core modding team. And yeah, they're also very excited for Skyblivion, which right now is on track to release in 2025 and will be its own flavor of Oblivion. And I cannot wait to try that out and kind of like compare and contrast to what we got with Oblivion Remastered from Virtuos. That's going to be a lot of fun to do. But yeah, all I got to say is I really want to see Bethesda continue down this path. It just bodes so well for Bethesda as a whole, and of course, the Elder Scrolls franchise. We'll see what happens with, in particular, Elder Scrolls 6. I'm really curious. Now, we also got to talk about this one right here. Check it out. You're not imagining things. Oblivion Remastered's standard difficulty is way too easy. We talked about this before, but stick with me. It says a single step up is insanely frustrating, and one modder has the math to prove it. So we've got some in-depth analysis and numbers as to what in the world happens from adept to expert, because I've been messing around with it and it's just absurd. The feeling is just such a huge jump. So yeah, let's dive into this article a little bit further. It comes from PCGamer.com, and it goes on to say the following: Oblivion Remastered has taken some well-judged steps to fix the original's wonky skill and attribute system, but still a very strange, unbalanced experience. New Oblivion's middle adept difficulty just feels too easy, while a single step up to expert makes fighting even a basic bandit a life or death slog. Now I know why. The behind the scenes math is bonkers. Modern Zion's difficulty slider fix mod is a blessed solution with a ton of options to customize Oblivion Remastered's difficulty to your liking, but the author also helpfully lays out what the different difficulties actually change in the game, and it's immediately apparent why vanilla New Oblivion's expert setting felt so awful to me. Scroll down here. It goes on to explain the settings apply a flat multiplier, first of all, to the damage you deal and receive. Adept is just 1x for each, which makes sense. One notch up to expert, though, causes a huge jump to how much damage you take, while it turns even legendary Daedric weapons into foam cosplay toys. Here's a chart of the default numbers from Zion right here. So check it out. Now we're going to ignore novice and apprentice. We're not here for that. We're going to focus on the jump from adept to expert. Check it out. So of course, they talked about that 1-1 ratio between damage dealt, damage received, but at expert, it just jumps so significantly. Check it out. 3.5 received, and then basically you have a huge reduction here from the damage that you actually deal. So it's like a huge nerf to how much damage you could deal, and it gets even worse at master, as you can see right here, times 6 received. and then they reduce it even more. This is hugely problematic, of course. And with anything difficulty related, I've talked about this in other games. When it comes to difficulty and when they start really scaling the health pools and the damage dealt and that sort of thing, that's when it really becomes a problem, especially when you mess around with making enemies absolutely super tanky and then of course the player super weak. That's just not fun at all. Ideally, what is best when you have a difficulty increase is you have new moves from the opponent, new magic is casted, you have to come up with different tactics, they have their own different flanking maneuvers they could do against you, all sorts of new stuff should be appearing as new difficulties appear as well. So that's my opinion on how difficulty should work. That would require an entire overhaul, but for now we do have this difficulty slider mod, which is out. I'll throw that link in the description below. If I forget, remember, you can just go to nexusmod.com, then enter into the search tool difficulty slider, and you will find it. But yeah, you know, this is definitely one area of the game right now, for me personally, that is the biggest problem. I really want to enjoy Expert, and there are moments where Expert does feel really good. Don't get me wrong. Where I'm like, that actually felt legit. And then you'll face off against like some random enemy and it just becomes absolutely impossible. And you go, what in the hell happened? There's even cases where I get one-shotted just out of the blue. But let me know how you guys are feeling about the jump from Adept to Expert. I'm extremely curious your take on this one. I have seen some comments saying, hey, you know what? Don't touch it. I like it. I think it's fine. Now, one thing that I have found when handling Expert difficulty is you need more defense, magical defense. So there's a bunch of spells that you can actually cast on yourself for that sort of thing. And that has been a huge help for me personally. So I highly recommend, if you're neglecting that sort of thing, to look into it big time, at least in the moment. I don't know if Bethesda plans to actually update this sort of thing. They have not been vocal whatsoever about changing up the difficulty in this one right now. But I'm going to say don't hold your breath. I think that you're going to have to rely on mods, which is a bummer because a lot of you guys are also on consoles and you probably want an official update. Now, we also have an unpopular opinion. Well, kind of. Check it out right here. It says this: unpopular maybe opinion, Oblivion gates are the worst part of the game. They are so repetitive and boring, same enemies, environments, etc. Whenever I'm forced to do them for a quest, I use items to make my speed and agility as high as possible so I can just run to the end because they are so boring. I don't know. I just find them very boring compared to the rest of the game and the other dungeons and caverns. Just my opinion, though. Don't hate me. So do you guys agree with this or not? They can get somewhat repetitive, and that's why I don't go from like Oblivion Gate to Oblivion Gate over and over again. I kind of mix up the content rotation myself, you know, go into an Elvish ruin and then a cave system, check out a fort, and then back to the Oblivion Gates. And I think that really does alleviate it, at least for me, a little bit. But I do definitely get the complaints for sure. I think that if this sort of mechanic is revisited, perhaps even in like something like Elder Scrolls 6, it definitely needs to be livened up for sure with, I think, some really cool randomized bosses. I think that that's kind of what's missing big time with the Oblivion Gates. It would be really cool to go into some of these gates and then all of a sudden there's a massive boss that you have to face off against from time to time. That'd be very, very cool. But yeah, let me know if this is revisited in the future, not Oblivion Gates exactly, but some sort of mechanic similar to it, of course. What would you guys like to see from it if there is, say, something similar introduced in Elder Scrolls 6? So yeah, sound off what you guys would like to see. Or would you guys like to see something more like Skyrim with the dragons? I think the dragons are just absolutely badass in Skyrim. And there were some comments on here as well saying, yeah, I really prefer the dragons. It was more of a focused, streamlined experience, and you didn't spend forever in, you know, a repetitive environment that you've been in over and over again. Now, we got to talk about cut content. So believe it or not, Oblivion had a guild that was supposed to be in the original game and was pretty much cut from the game. You could experience a slice of it, but it was supposed to be so much more. Check it out right here. It says this: Oblivion's Arena storyline. Another major side quest in Oblivion is the Imperial City's Arena, where the player can battle through the ranks until they're crowned the arena's grand champion. The arena functions much like Oblivion's guild quest lines, but only takes place in the Imperial City. However, this wasn't the original intention for the arena storyline in Oblivion, which was meant to function more like the other guilds. Each of the Oblivion's main cities was intended to have its own arena. Damn, that sounds really cool, I gotta say. Kind of reminds me of the first Gladiator movie, where he starts off in a small arena and then has to work his way up to get to the Imperial City, which it says right here, the hero Kavach would fight at each city's arena and become its champion before finally moving on to the Imperial City arena. Dude, I gotta say, this would make also an amazing mod, but again, when we're talking about features that I would love to see in Elder Scrolls 6, this is one of them that I would absolutely love to see, but with like the fully fleshed out story arc related to this, where maybe there's some like political intrigue involved with the arena as well, even like some sort of dirty betting. They could do so many different story arcs related to the arenas. It would be incredible. But yeah, you're probably wondering why Oblivion's other arenas were actually cut. We scroll down here, it says this: the approach, of course, would have made the arena storyline much longer. And it furthermore says this: including an arena in every city was ultimately cut because of resources, including the outside assets to create an arena for every city, as filling in each arena with NPCs and giving those NPCs dialogue was ultimately deemed too resource heavy for Oblivion, and the idea was scrapped. So yeah, hey, I guess it would make like a really cool expansion, that's for sure, or something like that. But yeah, sound off if you guys want to see something like that in Elder Scrolls 6. And you guys know what time it is. It's time to go over your top comments. Remember, leave a comment down below. It could end up right here in a future video. So let's check out what you guys had to say here. So here's the first one. For me, base building isn't critical, but a place to store unlimited stuff is. So again, I asked you guys, do you want to see like base building in Elder Scrolls 6? That's like the biggest question I have for you guys. It's ending up in so many games, like Bethesda games, of course. In Fallout 4, it was very optional. In games like Assassin's Creed Shadows, not so much. You know, you really had to base build to progress your character. And I did find that interesting how your base was very much connected to your character, and it made it more meaningful. But again, some people just don't like base building. They don't want to deal with it. They want it completely optional. But I want to know, do you want to see base building, if it is in Elder Scrolls 6, to be very meaningful, connected to your character, where you have to essentially build your own blacksmith, recruit people, and then you could upgrade your character through that sort of system? It's pretty cool in Shadows. It works nicely there. But yeah, a lot of people feel like, hey, this has to be optional. All right, so what's next here? We got this one right here. Bethesda never really cared about bug fixes. I doubt they care now. Mods is just an excuse for Bethesda to be lazy. Yeah, a lot of the community feels that way, and I honestly wish things would change. I really wish they would communicate more with the community and say, hey, you know what? We have like a really good patch team now for our games. You're not going to feel abandoned if there's, problems, which usually there are problems with the releases of their game. And I really hope they shift their focus on having like a patch team that really communicates with the community for something like Elder Scrolls 6. I'm just saying, that sure would be nice. Now, we also have, if I cast the Starlight spell in first person, it won't register unless I look down or go third person. Also, though, the first person horse riding back in there. Hell yes. So annoying, the Starlight, if I can even speak, Starlight spell problem has just become such a nuisance. I used it all the time in Skyrim, and to have this problem, that's one of the things that I really want fixed big time. Now, we also have this one right here. My biggest problem with the idea of base building in Bethesda games is that the pieces almost never connect in intuitive ways. Want to put a roof on the basic house you're trying to build? Well, good luck getting the angled peak to face the direction it would make sense for it to face. Rotate it all you want, it's going to snap back in the wrong side and not let you place it otherwise. That's always been a big issue, and there's mods that have fixed that as an issue as well. And I know that Bethesda still needs to improve that. Even with Starfield, it was somewhat clunky, and guess what? Modders also addressed that one. So yeah, I think it's just time for Bethesda to look at hiring some of these mod teams to really help adjust what needs to be adjusted before the game actually releases onto store shelves. Maybe like Microsoft, Bethesda, and modders can sit down in the same room and come up with some sort of strategy in the future, because I think that would be the smartest path to take. But thank you guys so much for watching. Stay tuned here for more Oblivion Remastered news. I have you guys covered in anything about like a Fallout 3 Remastered Bethesda. Yeah, so smack that subscribe button if you are new. We'd love to have you guys a part of the OWG family for sure. But thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all next time. Take care.